حي على الفلاح.
Musa alayhi salam threw his staff, and it suddenly transformed into a serpent. He also drew out his hand, and it became white and radiant for all the observers to see. The Pharaoh who claimed to be God was terrified by what he was seeing. Pharaoh said to the eminent ones around him, "Indeed, Musa is a learned magician. He wants to drive you out of your land by his magic. So what do you advise?" They said, "Postpone the matter of him and his brother, and send among the city's gatherers, who will bring you every learned, skilled magician." Pharaoh was confident that his magicians were unbeatable. He had long been using them to influence the hearts and minds of the people. Pharaoh used their conjuring tricks and illusions to dominate and control his subjects. Pharaoh announced to both brothers, "Then we will surely bring you magic like it. So make between us and you an appointment, which we will not fail to keep, and neither will you, in a place assigned." Musa knew that Allah would grant him victory and played this to his advantage. He asked for the contest between magicians and prophets to take place on the day of prominent festival during the mid-morning. It would be in everyone's plain view, obviating any opportunity to deny the defeats of Pharaoh and his magicians. Pharaoh ordered his ministers, dignitaries, and everybody to attend, and so nobody dared to remain behind. They came to the gathering saying, "Perhaps we may follow the magicians if they are victorious." They gathered from everywhere, becoming a very large number, 80,000 people, to witness the scene. It is said on the authority of Ibn Abbas that there were 70 magicians. The magicians sought confirmation from Pharaoh that the winner of this event would be granted favors and other rewards from him, including being elevated in status to be closer to him. Pharaoh agreed. The festival appeared. Everyone, young and old, had gathered, anxious to see who would win. When the magicians came together and stood in ranks, Musa and Harun alayhi salam were standing in front of them. They asked Musa if he would like to throw first, or should they go ahead. Musa said to them to throw first. The magicians threw their instruments of magic, such as their ropes and staffs, and suddenly it seemed as if such instruments were moving like snakes. These were not in fact snakes, but rather, the Qur'an explains, when they threw, they bewitched the eyes of the people and struck terror into them, and they presented a great feat of magic. It would probably be akin to mass hypnosis, where the audience made to see something that was not there. The magicians were triumphant and declared themselves the winner. "By the might of Pharaoh, indeed it is we who are predominant." Musa alayhi salam, seeing these repulsive and ungodly objects slithering towards him, felt a momentary apprehension. However, Allah said, "Fear not, indeed it is you who are superior, and throw what is in your right hand." He threw his stick. At once, the stick transformed into a huge serpent and quickly devoured all the illusionary serpents that covered the ground. The crowd rose up like a great wave, cheering and shouting for Musa. The magicians were astounded. They were well skilled in the art of magic and illusion, for they were the best magicians in the world at the time. But their conjuring was nothing but a trick. The magicians knew that Musa's serpent was real. The onlookers were terrified by this spectacle and started fleeing to watch this event from a safe distance. This was the tipping point. Pharaoh and his magicians were speechless. Their public defeat was incontrovertible. The truth was established, and the magicians' trickery and sorcery were proven false in the eyes of all the spectators. None of Pharaoh or his magicians saw this coming. What did this defeat mean to the magicians? Magic and sorcery were taken seriously and played a large role in Egyptian politics. Sorcerers formed the scholarly elite and learned of society, many of them holding high positions and having the role of advising Pharaoh and his inner sanctum. Yet, they immediately recognized the truth from being the disbelievers who dabbled in the dark arts. Something miraculous happened. They knew that what they saw was not some cheap sleight of hand, but rather the power of Allah at work. Before the crowd, they unanimously fell down in prostration to the Lord of all the worlds. Here they were esteemed and highly regarded by society. By embracing Islam, they had everything to lose: their positions, salaries, political connections, and even their lives. But this did not stop them. So the magicians fell down in prostration. They said, "We have believed in the Lord of Harun and Musa." When Pharaoh saw the magicians believed in Musa, he became worried that the people may soon follow. He wanted to stop them from this. So in the presence of the people, Pharaoh asked them, "You believe in him before I gave you permission? Surely he is your chief who taught you the magic." Again, even though Musa alayhi salam had won the contest in accordance with Pharaoh's own rules, the latter refused to acknowledge defeat. Instead, he made a ridiculous assertion that Musa alayhi salam had conspired with the magicians and had taught them. A claim made even more absurd given that both Musa and Harun were locked up in prison during the time the magicians were gathered for this event. The magicians began that day as disbelievers, corrupt and interested only in riches and fame. However, within a few hours, they had recognized the truth. They saw with their own eyes the omnipotence of Allah and repented for their errant ways. Pharaoh wanted to punish them severely in order to deter all those who may become inclined to believe. The magicians, however, did not care about the threats made by Pharaoh because they had fought the truth and its signs. They said, "Never will we prefer you to what has come to us of the clear signs, and above is He who created us." They then asked him to do whatever he likes to them, since he can only do something in this world. When they move to the next world, they will be under the one who they have believed in and followed his messengers. They wanted the everlasting reward, which was better than what Pharaoh has promised them. They said, "Do you take vengeance on us, because we have believed in the signs of our Lord?" When they came to us, they further said, "Our Lord, pour out upon us patience and cause us to die as Muslims." They asked Allah to make them firm in order to face the trial they were inflicted with in the form of the tyrant Pharaoh. The magicians also admonished and threatened Pharaoh of the punishment of Allah. They said, "Verily, whoever comes to his Lord as a sinner, for him is hell. He will neither die therein nor live. And whoever comes to his Lord as a believer and has done righteous deed, they will have the highest ranks, the Garden of Eden, beneath which rivers flow, to live therein forever. And this is the reward of those who purify themselves." He was furious by the turn of events, and true to his arrogant and cruel nature, the punishment for the magicians was horrific, disgraceful, and agonizing. The magicians knew that Pharaoh would deliver his threat and more, yet they held firm to their newfound faith. The magicians, as it is told, were put to death. Their bodies hung in the squares and marketplaces to teach the people a lesson. Pharaoh was angry. His kingdom of fear was built by oppressing the people and holding their hearts and minds captive. All the people of Egypt, from the ministers and magicians to the lowly servants, were afraid of Pharaoh's power and anger. But Musa had exposed a weak spot. Pharaoh worried that his kingdom was about to unravel. However, he was surrounded by sycophants and parasites who urged him onto greater tyranny. Due to their association with Musa, the children of Israel became the scapegoats. And the chief of Pharaoh's people, Haman, said, "Will you leave Musa and his people to cause corruption in the land and to forsake you and your gods?" Pharaoh said, "We will slay their sons and spare their women, and verily, we have a strong hold over them." He wanted to do this so as to reduce the number of his opponents. Pharaoh ordered more carnage, pillaging. Pharaoh imprisoned anyone who spoke out against this oppression, and Musa alayhi salam was powerless. He could not interfere. He counseled patience and watched silently. The children of Israel complained to Musa, and he was put into a very difficult situation. As he contended with Pharaoh's plots and plans, his people were turning against him. Musa advised his people to be patient and seek help from their Lord. They said to him, "We were harmed before you came to us and after you came to us." What they meant was that their children were slain before Musa came to them and even after Musa came to them. So Musa comforted them, saying, "It may be that your Lord will destroy your enemy and make you inheritors in the land. Then he will see how you are going to act." Pharaoh turned to his chief minister and said, "Am I a liar, O Haman?" The Pharaoh had built his kingdom on the fact that he was a god. What was he to do now that Musa had revealed that there is no God but the one and only God? Pharaoh knew deep down that Musa was a true prophet and that his opposition was based on arrogance. Numerous signs had already been presented to him, but Pharaoh rejected them nevertheless. He still proclaimed himself as God in his delusions, believing that the monotheistic call by Musa was leading his people to the wrong path. Pharaoh sought comfort in his power and glittering wealth and was so entrenched in his spiritual blindness that he was no longer capable of distinguishing truth from falsehood. Pharaoh relished in his enjoyment of dunya and thought its favors, richness, and pleasures could last eternally and grant him immortality. Not being content with denying the God of Musa, Pharaoh then also created further distractions by asking his chief minister, Haman, to build a tower for him in order to have access to the heavens to see the God of Musa. And Pharaoh said, "O eminent ones, I have not known you to have a God other than me. Then ignite for me, O Haman, a fire upon the clay, and make for me a tower, that I may look at the God of Moses. And indeed, I do think he is among the liars." The cronies surrounding Pharaoh knew that it was a fruitless endeavor, but in order to make a mockery of the religion of Musa, they wasted resources in building the tower. Never before had a tower of such dimensions been built. The disbeliever is always arrogant, ignorant, and blind in his actions. Musa and Harun alayhi salam were agents of change, and the countdown to the destruction of Pharaoh's empire had begun, starting with the mass conversion of the magicians. There was another shocking conversion by Pharaoh's own queen, Asiya alayhi salam. Allah had instilled love in her heart for Musa alayhi salam from the time he was washed ashore as an infant onto the banks of the river by her palace. When Musa alayhi salam returned to spread the message of Islam, she became one of those who embraced the message. Asiya alayhi salam had everything to lose: her majestic position, social status, treasures and jewelry, and the luxuries of palace life. And more, she risked losing her life by becoming Muslim.